Is my volume on? Well, greetings everyone, and welcome to this, our Rural Agricultural Development Authority and the Pretty Last Name Unit joint conversation on target hardening. With me is Mr. Winston Simpson and Monique Raynor, and we took a decision to extend by 5 minutes to facilitate some more of our farmers logging on. We want you to know we value and appreciate your time, and we want to respect the fact that you have logged in early, so we're just asking you for 5 minutes. As we are doing here in studios, you might want to just remind a group or a farmer to log on and let's get going. So we have 5 minutes to adjust and get ourselves ready for this 2-hour conversation on target hardening as we approach the holiday season. We will be back with you in another 4 minutes. Thanks.
Looking sharp, gentlemen.
No. Did you say short?
Very sharp.
Okay. When you said short, I was looking to my right because I know you're talking about my colleague, Winston Simpson. But if you say sharp, it's both of us. Short is Simpson alone.
No. If you say short, we are not short of anything.
Hey, good men are short, man. Good men are short, and we're short of good men. Thank you for that insert, because that gave us an opportunity to check our audio, and you're coming through loud and clear, and we appreciate this. It would appear that the facilities here at the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries, where RADA is also housed, we get a little special blessing from the service providers, because the internet here is at max, and this makes good for us. I'm just confirming that we have our presenters on. I see Maxine, and I see Devon.
Yeah. I didn't just realize. I'm going to fix it up when I come.
Yes, sir. I'm just checking if you're hearing me. Just so that my
that's a then way sign.
Okay, we see Devon.
Is Roger on?
Is Mr. Roger Turner on?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Beautiful, sir. Thank you. Good to have you. Appreciate that. Dr. Watson, are you there? We hope to hear from Dr. Watson in short order. And of course, I am hearing the voice of our new head of our Pretty Last and Prevention Unit, Superintendent Oral Pasco. Sir Pasco, I'm sorry that this is not radio that you're accustomed to, but you're still going to be on YouTube and on Zoom and on what else? Twitter? We're going to try and put you on everything that we can. It's good to have you all.
All mediums are welcome, sir. All mediums to spread the message.
That's the spirit, sir. That's the spirit. We have almost used up our 5 minutes, and we are just counting down by seconds to hit the button at 5 minutes past 6. That means we are either going to have to make up for 5 minutes or go over 5 minutes. We can dialogue on how we do that. Okay, it is 5 minutes past 6 on December 14, 2021. If you have not yet done so, please prepare yourselves, because my understanding is that Christmas is on the way. I'd like to open with a prayer, please. So, Lord, we thank you for this opportunity that we can come to you celebrating life and the amenities of life that you have given to us. Today, we focus on the farmers. We focus on those who till the soil, as you did in Genesis. And we recall that the Lord planted a garden east of Eden. And at one point, he set angels with flaming swords to guard that garden. Today, we come to look at the ways in which we can reap what we sow, especially at Christmas. Thank you for all the minds that have come together. Help us then not only to talk about the things, but give us the energy to execute that which we have purposed. And bring glory to your name. Amen.
Amen.
And so the major objectives of this conversation is just two things. One, we want to have a conversation with farmers and the persons who are in position to make things happen. So we're going to be having a dialogue, eh? And then the second thing is, importantly, we want to hear from the police, particularly Superintendent Oral Pasco, on some of the actionable items that we can put in place as we look at target hardening. With me today is Mr. Winston Simpson and Monique Reyna, and both are from RADA. And we have been joined by the CEO of RADA. Hi, good to see you, Mrs. Farina Young. In a little while, we probably ask you to say something. Rosine, appreciate that. Okay, so Mr. Winston Simpson is the Principal Director of Field Services and Operations. When I grow up, I would like to become that person in that position. And of course, you know, RADA is Rural Agricultural Development Authority. It is great to have you, Mr. Simpson. Blessings. Yes, sir.
Let me thank you, Bishop Gary Welch. Indeed a pleasure. And as we join the moderation this evening, let me introduce Bishop Gary Welch, an Assistant Commissioner of Police, retired.
That's right. Put that before.
Okay. And as such, he has been very integral in some of the execution of duties as it relates to media licensing. And the brainchild of this idea came from the pre-disaster unit, the Superintendent Pasco and the Bishop Gary Welch, to ensure that farmers reap what they sow, especially this season, Christmas season. It is always a pleasure to be able to communicate with our farmers. They have been the bedrock. Their resilience is something that we must recognize. And as such, when we heard of the various challenges that they have, we saw it quite timely to make sure a conversation of this is being held. But as time permits, we will make sure that we get in as much conversation as is possible. And we have set some ground rules for this Zoom meeting. As was said before, we also will be streaming on YouTube. Our panelists, which includes Maxine Brown from RADA, our livestock specialist, Mr. Devon Sawyers from the Dairy Board, Mr. Roger Turner from the Beef Cattle Industry, Dr. Osbert Watson from the Veterinary Division, and Superintendent Oral Pasco from the pre-disaster unit. An official introduction will come as we move along. Each member will be given 10 minutes to make an opening statement, and no question will be entertained until the time allotted has been expired. As per our running schedule, as it said, ladies before gentlemen, I will call on Miss Maxine Brown to open what you would call the wicket. Maxine Brown is our livestock specialist at RADA, and she assists in supervising some 13 livestock officers island-wide. She's very, very brilliant, a graduate of the University of West Indies, a graduate of the Pedro Enriquez National University in Dominican Republic, where she has attained BSc in botany, zoology, and a master's degree. She has a wide range of experiences working in two of the most prestigious research areas, the Borders Research Station and the Caribbean Agricultural Research and Development Institute, CARDI. Very passionate lady about animals and their productivity, both commercial and otherwise. She has collaborated with a large, abundant network of agencies in her specialized training, especially in the production of animals and in the nutrition on a whole. And so we found her very fitting to join this conversation this afternoon. So let us welcome Ms. Maxine Brown as she takes the first ball. Welcome, Maxine.
Thank you, Mr. Simpson, and other distinguished members of the head table, ladies and gentlemen, online, farmers, everybody, a pleasant good evening. Before I start anything, I want to say a big thank you to our farmers. We are well aware of the challenges that you face, and despite the challenges, you continue to ensure that we have meat on our table, and we appreciate it. Now, with RADA, we are the entity that tends to link with the farmers on a day-to-day basis. Our core function is really to provide technical services to farmers to ensure that they learn how to rear their animals, following best practices, getting the best out of the animals, and ensuring that they're doing so in a manner that is also paying attention to animal welfare, because that is also a big issue internationally that we have to make sure that we are also participating, especially if we're thinking about exporting in the future. These are things that persons are concerned about. So we are well aware of it, and we continue to train our farmers in that area. We also provide for farmers other services because we link with different agencies. And we know sometimes in implementing best practices, not all farmers will have the resources to do so. So we write a lot of projects and programs. We link with the ministry. We link with a lot of international agencies. A lot of farmers would have been familiar with us linking with institutions such as ICA, FAO, international organizations such as Lansdowne University, and CTA in the Netherlands. So we have been making sure that we're looking both locally and internationally to get all the information that is needed to make our farmers productive. We also serve as the entity that takes the farmers from their thinking about going into farming. So we are there before they even purchase their first animal, all the way to transition to see the farm growing and expanding. We're there hand holding. So we are the persons that farmers rely on to make sure that whatever we're telling them, it is making their business successful. And also, we also facilitate the registration of farmers to facilitate planning, because we know that we have issues with climate change, issues like you say, farmers will have challenges because the stray dogs or other things that may affect them. And so if we want to plan for the different challenges, which include what we're discussing, to create their livelihood, then we have to know where our farmers are located, what kind of production they're engaged in, and to see how best we can make plans that will suit the various level of farmers, because you're going to have your micro farmers, your medium farmers, and your very large farmers. And sometimes you have to use different strategies to cater for all of them. Now, what I want to speak today about especially is the impact that we have seen on our farmers with Fradia larceny. We all know about the economic impact. We all know about the losses that farmers face, the price of animals. You have goats that are selling for over $100,000. So that is not a small investment. We all know that the farmers have to produce the feed for their animals. It's investment, putting in money to grow the forages, to sometimes supplement with commercial grain. So it takes a lot out of the farmers in terms of monetary spending. So you can understand when a farmer is relying on his production for his earnings, to see somebody just walk in and take, in most cases, 100% of his animals. That is not an easy thing for the farmer. This is what he's depending on to pay JPS. He cannot go to JPS and tell them that he cannot pay the light bill because they stole his animals. He has other bills to pay. He has his family to take care of. So this is a great impact on farmers when they put their hard earnings into increasing and expanding their farms, just to see persons walk in and take their animals just like that, without offering any help to the farmers. They were there with the farmers on a day-to-day basis, helping the farmer or investing in the farm. So financially, we all know the impact of it. And we all know that livestock is important to Jamaica because we're spending billions of dollars annually to bring meat into the country. And with the COVID situation, we realize that the world can close down. You can have ship stuff coming in, you can have plane stuff coming in. And so we cannot depend on other countries to feed us. So we have to make sure that we're able to feed ourselves, and that is what our farmers are there for. The other impact on our farmers is one of the loss of genetic material. This is you can't even quantify the cost in terms of genetic loss, because we have animals, you have to breed animals, especially for small ruminants and for cattle. This is not an overnight reproductive kind of cycle. You have 5 months you have to wait on a goat or a sheep to produce offspring. Then it takes another 3 or 4 months before that animal is weaned. And then the farmer has to raise that another 3 months or so before they can sell it for meat. For cattle, 9 months, they have to wait until a cow can produce a calf. You also look at the genetic material when the farmer is selecting animals continuously, ensuring that he has an animal that probably is an animal that is giving 3 offsprings at any one time, or 2 offspring, is a good mother, they have a buck that is very virile, and somebody comes and takes it. Even if at RADA, we try to assist them to say, we will give you back another goat or something to try to let you start back again or to compensate you. It is not the same. So the genetic material is lost. We have farmers who have invested, you pay for artificial insemination. It's practically over $13,000 just to get one animal inseminated, to carry through purchasing the semen, doing the insemination, checking for pregnancy. So there's a lot, and that is genetic material from high quality animals that was imported from overseas. And persons come and steal the animal, the pregnant animals. The kids didn't even get a chance to be born for you to see the genetics that is there. And they take that animal and slaughter the animal and throw the kid out of it. And all of that is gone. Genetic material is too important. So that is how we're going to ensure that we're producing more robust animals. We all know, especially for our local goats, we love the fact that it is very resistant to parasites, have some other features that we like, and we crossbreed it to get a good animal. So we need the genetics, and this is what is being taken away from us. So we try to build, we are finding ourselves back at square one, and this cannot continue. We also sometimes overlook what we call the emotional impact on farmers. When you're a farmer and you have your animals, of course, you know that you're going to produce some animals that you're going to be selling, and that is the business that you're in. But you have some animals that you're going to be keeping. These are what you call your breeders, your females, and you'll have them for 4, 5, even more years, depending on the productivity of that animal. This is an animal that the farmer has invested emotional support in producing the animal, in maintaining the animal. He has to be there when the animals are killed to take care of the young, make sure the young is getting everything that it needs to survive. If the animal gets a cut, he has to make sure that he's dressing it to prevent the whole issue of screwworm. If the animal is sick, he has to be making sure he's finding vet care of it, or if he can handle it himself, to try and work with that animal. So when you come and you take an animal or the animals from the farmer, you have created something that you're not even thinking about, the impact. You're not even realizing the emotional part to it as well. And that's why I say farmers are so resilient and so strong, because a lot of us would have given up a long time ago and say, no, we're not going to continue with this. So we thank the strong mentality of our farmers, the fighting mentality of our farmers, to realize the importance of what they're doing and to know that we are really serious about working with them to solve this issue. And I'm happy to see a lot of persons logging on this evening, because that is what we're here for. We're here to discuss solutions to the problem. Jamaicans have awoken, and we have realized that we need to be protecting our farmers. That is what we should be doing. We should be angry. We should feel agitated. We should say no more. We have to protect our farmers. This is our food that we are protecting. We're making sure we have meat on our tables. So I'm happy to see that everybody has recognized the importance of protecting our farmers, and we're here and we're going to speak about solutions. Maybe not all of them is something that we're going to be able to take on, but whatever it is, we'll analyze it, we'll look at it, and we'll make sure that our farmers know that we support them, that we encourage them, and we're doing all that we can to ensure that their continued success. So I thank you all for this opportunity to be here to say these few words to you. There's much more that can be said, but we have other speakers who feel just as strongly about the situation and also must share their opinion. So thank you very much, and I look forward to a very productive rest of the evening.
Well, thank you so much, Maxine Brown. And what passion you spoke with and out of your experience, and we appreciate you doing that. The second presenter will come to us is Mr. Devon Sawyers. You know him as the acting CEO of the Dairy Board, but I know Devon as a goat farmer, one of the champion farmers who took the stage many years at the Denby Agricultural Show. And permit me to thank him publicly for introducing me into goat rearing. Whatever I know today about rearing goats, I learned it from you, Devon. Welcome, friend, and you have 10 minutes to share, please.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Jamaica. Not good morning. Good afternoon, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here today. Just to share a few words with our farmers and our technocrats. You know, I'm very pleased that we can organize such a panel discussion on an issue that has been plaguing Jamaican farmers for years, especially livestock farmers. But let me start by introducing myself. The name again is Devon Sawyers, not Sawyers. Sawyers. I'm the acting CEO at the Dairy Board. Right, and so I can tell you a few things about the Dairy Board. Now, the Dairy Board is primarily the organization in the Ministry of Agriculture that is charged with redeveloping the dairy sector that was almost devastated in the 1990s. Now, the board primarily, we take care of our such 100 farmers that are dairy farmers that still exist in Jamaica. We offer them technical support similar to what RADA does. We provide them with small grants. We also have a loan scheme that farmers can apply to. We have now opening up not only to dairy farmers, but to beef cattle farmers, and also to small ruminant farmers. So we have a loan portfolio. We offer small loans to farmers, right, at 5%. But into the matter now, and which I am very passionate about. As Mr. Wells said, I'm a small ruminant farmer. I primarily raise goats, but I do have some cattle. Now, the question I like to put out there, who is responsible? That's the question we need to ask ourselves. Is the burden of predial larceny primarily an issue that the farmer is responsible for? Is it the government? Is it the Ministry of Agriculture? Who is really responsible? You know, I'm going to say this and it might maybe ruffle some of our farmers a little bit. 75% of the responsibility of protecting the animals is not the burden of the police, is not the burden of the ministry, but is the burden of the farmers. You know, I know some might not like that, but it's the burden of the farmers. Sometimes we need to examine ourselves. What were we doing wrong? I can tell you that I've been a victim of predial larceny before. When I just started, first thing that someone said to me, if you have the animals, you have to have them in a secure place. So farmers, think about it. Do you have a secure pen? Check. All right, that still cannot prevent you from being a victim of predial larceny. That can't stop. But do you have that secure fence, secure area for your animals? Maybe no. Do you have proper housing? Do you have proper lighting? Do you have a relationship with the police in your area that are in charge of predial larceny? Do the farmers meet in groups? In my community where we have our livestock group that we meet every month, right? We meet and we discuss the issues that we face. So we need to ask ourselves these questions. When are you a victim of predial larceny? Do you report it? Do you make other farmers aware? Are you doing background checks on the persons who are entering your farm? Right? What is your method of feeding your animals? Do you just let them out, let them roam in the community? Right? Do you have cameras? Something simple as a dog. These are some things that we need to ask ourselves. What is our responsibility? And I want to put it back, not to bash my farmers, but to say, the police comes on your farm, the animals are already gone. We need to come up with solutions that are workable from the farmer's end. We need to communicate with each other more. We need to meet in our groups more. In my community where I am, we used to have goat thieves like every other week, somebody loses a goat. When we started to meet as a group 5 years ago, the problem gradually went down. It gradually went down. When the farmers started to build proper secure housing, start to put in lighting and cameras, the problem gradually went down. When we started to meet more with our police groups, the problem gradually went down. So I'm not here to just say that predial larceny is an issue, but I want us to take responsibility for the issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Devon. And your words of encouragement, who's responsible? But during our comment section, we shall surely speak about that. At this time, I want to introduce Roger Turner. Mr. Turner, I knew him way back. He used to be my boss as chairman of RADA. I know he's now a big farmer, farming over 40 years. Livestock, cane, banana, coconut, citrus. And this evening, he'll be representing the Cattle Breeders Society of Jamaica. So he's a man of many parts within the sector. and we look forward to his great contribution. Thank you, Mr. Turner, and the floor is now yours.
Good evening, gentlemen, ladies, fellow farmers. Courtesies and protocols duly observed. Mr. Simpson, so good to see you again. We have a series of roads that we can drive down in trying to understand RADA lasting. And I'd far rather call it theft. A thief is a thief, and we are here to try and prevent theft in and on our farms. Over the years, attitudes and laws have changed. I remember in the 80s, going into the early 90s, and Deputy Commissioner and the soups, the older superintendents with us tonight, we remember you had ICU cases. ICU stealing citrus, ICU stealing my bananas. And the law courts would accept those cases and deal with those cases. By the mid-90s, that was thrown out. Then Kenny Benjamin came to Jamaica and started security, and you could hire a security firm. And a security guard with a shotgun or a revolver would say, "Stop or I shoot." And you could catch the thief. Now, the FLA says you cannot do that. Not even the police officer can raise his firearm at the citizen in an unlawful manner. If he does so, he's charged, firearm is taken away. All along, you had the case where a cluster of farmers would get together and wait for a thief. And they chase him down, catch him, rope him up, tie him up. But when that thief is taken to the guardroom at one of the commissioners, assistant deputy commissioners' stations, it is a duty of the guardroom officer to complete a form. And on that form, it says, ask the accused if he's feeling pain. If he's feeling pain because he was caught as a thief, he has to be sent to the local hospital. And there the doctor will say to him, "Where are you feeling pain?" "Or I'm bruised up, my cut up, my see blood I run." By the time that doctor's report gets back to the guardroom, the three of you that went out and sat up all night to catch a goat thief will be charged with assault at common law, occasioning bodily harm, and you'd be locked up with the thief. So, as much as our learned colleagues have talked about 75% of the responsibility for securing your assets, your citrus has to be locked up in a fence with lights and cameras, and your coconuts on your trees have to be secured with barbed wire. It is not the responsibility of farmers to do those things. Farmers live on land, and land used to be protected by the Trespass Act, where it was unlawful to step off a road or a right-of-way onto cultivated land. But again, that has been thrown out as squatting has become a formal activity of capturing land. And so the law lords and the courts don't know how to treat trespass anymore, because you're allowed to go onto a piece of land and put up your building. And if the landowner comes back from England and knocks down the building, he's charged with malicious destruction of property. So we're in a conundrum, fellow farmers. We're in a huge conundrum. We can't physically attack the thieves to catch them. We can't pepper them with shotgun pellets anymore. We can't report to the police station that you saw Tom and George stealing from you. There's absolutely nothing you can do in this framework of laws. And that's the truth of it, because we've been through all of these cases at the Lindsay Court Office over the years, over the last 40 years. The only thing that's left is that when the thieves cut off the ears off of my cows and leave the tags that I'm sure Dr. Oswald is going to talk about on the ground, and travels to convert that meat, whether it's goat or sheep or cow, into money, the only opportunity for the thief control unit that we're talking about, we don't need to call it pretty larceny anymore. They're thieves. It must be called the thief control unit. Is interdiction to catch that vehicle on its way to the market, whether that market is a cook shop, whether that market is the back of a supermarket, and charge the occupants for unlawful possession. That's the only charge we can find that allows the police to control the theft of livestock and farm produce at the moment. That's the only opening we have. And that's where all our efforts should be. But I would like to introduce two things to that. I would like to introduce the fact that carcasses in any establishment, bulk produce of yams or pumpkins or bananas or citrus in any establishment must be accounted for by the owners of that establishment, whether they're a supermarket or they're in a market, that those people who buy produce in bulk must be made to stand to account. Unfortunately, any political party that passes that in Gordon House will never get back into power, because that is a crux of the traceability. And I'll describe it this way. There's such a barrier right there at the moment in Jamaica. When you get your livestock passport for your animal from the ministry, and that passport number ties to the tag number, and you sell that animal and hand over that passport to the person who has bought it, let's say it's a butcher, and the butcher's a good butcher, and he does a thriving business. When you look on the dashboard of that butcher's truck, and in the footwell of the passenger seat of that truck, it's piled up with livestock passports. The passport has no place in controlling theft because it is not accountable. That passport doesn't form the basis for traceability like it's meant to. It reaches a dead end in a butcher's truck. Instead of being handed over to the health inspector who inspects the carcass. And when that carcass is then sold to the cook shop or the supermarket, the passport should accompany it. So when the police come and raid a supermarket or a Chinese restaurant and say, where did you get that beef? The passport can be brought forward. I said, it came from this farm. I bought it at this butcher shop. I bought it from this wholesaler. So until that process can be connected, we ask the police to catch our produce on the road because they're not coming onto my farm. No policeman joins the police force to sit in a ditch waiting for a thief to come by with a bag of coconuts or a bag of pumpkins. Only the farmer will do that. So this is my second request, panelists, Mr. Simpson and Bishop. My second request is to give that farmer and his friends the opportunity to hold a thief in a manner suitable to the law. And the manner that is suitable to the law is to give him a taser. He can know, and as Mr. Sawyer's farmer groups will tell you, they know where the thieves are coming from. They know which farmers they're going to target because you live in a community. But the thief will not be able to leave that farm if the farmer has a taser, because he can fire the taser needles at the thief, bring him to ground. With the license for the taser are two handcuffs, one pair for the hands of the thief and one pair for the ankles. When that takes place, the farmer can call the taser recovery unit, which should be in the thief unit of the Ministry of Agriculture, which we call the pre-last unit. It should be the anti-thief unit of the Ministry of Agriculture, and have that taser needle recovery unit come down and inspect the man, inspect the produce, and remove the needles and charge the man. The farmer doesn't get hurt, the thief doesn't get hurt, and you have caught the man. I hope you take kind consideration to these 2 points I raised. One, the traceability through to the retail and wholesale and retail units where our farm produce goes, and licensed tasers so that farmers can protect their property. I thank you very much.
Thank you so very much, Mr. Turner. We so appreciate your passionate points, and I'm sure Superintendent Pasco is paying attention to the recommendations, and I'm sure he will respond at the appropriate time. And your recommendations have found favor, at least with us here facilitating this meeting. Thank you so very much. You made mention of traceability and the use of the passport, and there is no other person who is as passionate about passports and the use thereof as my friend, Dr. Osbel Watson. He's the Chief Veterinary Officer in the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries. And what a great pleasure it is for me to introduce Dr. Watson, my friend.
Good evening, Bishop Welch, and good evening, Mr. Moderator. Good evening, colleagues. Good evening, farmers. Good evening, all. It's a pleasure for me to share with you this afternoon. As Bishop Welch told you, I am very passionate about this whole thing. I love every farmer in Jamaica. They are great people. They feed us. There's a quote, a Facebook quote, globalcitizen.org, which states, "Show me a nation that cannot feed itself, and I'll show you a nation in chaos." Farmers in Jamaica have been farming from ever since, and they have been experiencing challenges in relation to larceny and pre-larceny, especially in the recent past. They are so committed that they stick to it. And so therefore, we ought to ensure that the full support is given where possible. The role of the Veterinary Services Division in all of this is multifaceted. One, the Veterinary Services Division safeguards the animal health status of the country, and by extension, the public health status and the health of humans. And in so doing, we ensure the safety of food of animal origin from the farm straight to the table. Traceability is one of those interventions which can assist us to ensure that we safeguard our food in terms of its safety, but also to ensure that we safeguard the farmer's investments. My friend, Mr. Turner, spoke about the issue of cattle passports and the tagging. These are excellent tools, but they cannot function in a vacuum. And for too long, we have an antiquated system of slaughter of animals in Jamaica, which must stop now. We need proper, supervised slaughter facilities manned by inspectors, public health inspectors, veterinarians, which would ensure that every single animal that comes in for slaughter, whether it's a goat, a pig, a cow, one, it's properly identified, two, it's healthy. And it's only at that time that Mr. Turner's wish will come true to ensure that the cattle passport that he gets on his farm for one head of cattle follows that one head of cattle straight through to slaughter, and the information from that will leave from the place of slaughter to the supermarket, to the meat shop on the corner, so that at any time the police officer or the inspector or the public health inspector stops by to verify meat at any one of these outlets, the information must be provided, or else that person is in trouble with the law. So we are fully supportive of the animal identification system, which has been implemented in the first instance for cattle. We have so far tagged in excess of 65,000 heads of cattle, which means that now what the veterinary services can say to the minister is, let us now declare that every single movement of cattle along our roads, along our thoroughfares, or from one farm to the other, must be accompanied by that passport. The passport must have the information matching the two ear tags. And of course, the passport also has a barcode. That same barcode, which is readable also on the ear tag. So it's a foolproof system to ensure that the farmer can rest assured that should in case the animal is stolen, there should be no loopholes for it to get into the commercial system, because the commercial system should be one that is so vetted by the public health inspector and all of those along the chain to ensure that at all aspects along the chain that the verifications take place. Now, in addition, we have put in place a system to now use DNA technology, and we're trying to get that up and running, whereby we are able to take a piece of meat, a sample from a piece of meat anywhere, and to be able to match it with a cow that perhaps would have been stolen from a farmer. Because when we put that tag in the air, we also collect a tissue sample, which we have in store, which can be matched by DNA to that animal or to the carcass of that animal if it's stolen. Now, we are aware of other issues in relation to whether or not your cow or your goat that they steal ends up somewhere underground. We don't know. We leave that up to the police to really help us to fight these thugs. But as it relates to the commercial trade, to all our supermarkets, our meat shops, our butchers, every single butcher must be made to adhere to the law so that the butcher must know the origin of each animal that is slaughtered. He must get the passport for each cattle that is slaughtered. And at any point in time that that butcher cannot show a passport for a carcass, when the public health inspector turns up, then that butcher should be charged under the law. So it is not all lost, and we are all in this thing together. We will have to work through it together to ensure that we can, one, safeguard our food chain, and two, to safeguard our farmers' investments. And I must say that the speakers before, including Maxine and Devon and Mr. Turner, I say ditto, ditto, ditto. I echo their remarks, and they are timely. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Watson. As per usual, your passion for this kind of conversation is always high. And a big thank you. And you have said something critical. And that leads me into introducing a person who is so critical in addressing that, and that is to safeguard your assets. At this time, I'll introduce a gentleman to you. He has a zest for safeguarding assets and ensuring that our farmers reap what they grow. He has served as an officer in charge of Interpol Security Intelligence Branch, the Security Attaché Embassy of Jamaica in Washington, officer in charge of the JCF Planning and Performance Unit, serving as a director on the board of governors in the TAJ, Tax Administration of Jamaica, an officer in charge of JCF Communication, Forensic and Communication, and Interpol, and the Joint Liaison Unit in the National Intelligence Bureau. He has also developed policies for the JCF, the JCF Strategic Anti-Gang Unit Concept and Policy, the restructuring and reformation process of the JCF Protective Services. And let me say, with many other things, we are pleased to have him on board and head of the pre-last unit in the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries, no other than Superintendent Pasco. He comes with us with a wealth of experience, and we look forward to his contribution in putting a significant dent in the scourge of pre-last and farm tech in Jamaica. Welcome, Superintendent.
Okay, good afternoon. Thank you for such a, I don't understand why no one else got such a rousing introduction, but I appreciate it. I'm actually happy to be in this forum, and I was appointed over a month now, and I take my job very serious, and this was an opportunity to extend some of the work that we have to do. We are way behind, and according to Mr. Turner, the thieves are seeming like they're winning, but they're not winning. At this point, it would appear that they're winning. However, we as stakeholders have to work as a team. And matter of fact, before I go into the target hardening, I'm gonna just take a quick snippet at some of the overall strategy for prayer larceny that the ministry, as way back as I think the framework that I've been doing some research. And with the points and the recommendation from the previous speakers, including Ms. Brown, including Mr. Small, Mr. Roger Turner, and Dr. Watson. I appreciate what we have said, but just to put everything in context, it means that the strategy has 4 main tenets: traceability, which was addressed earlier, enforcement and compliance on behalf of the police and all the stakeholders, including the farmers, the legislation, including addressing legislation to improve the teeth in the legislation, and a more integrated set of policies and laws that work together. And the institutional framework, that's when all the stakeholders, all the systems, all the SOPs, all the policies work in an integrated, in tandem way to get us where we want to be, to make it difficult in terms of thieves preying on the agriculture sector. And if they do prey, if they are caught, they are put before the court, and there is enough evidence and linkage to the crime, and the judiciary do the job and get the tool in which to put them away, to take them out of that pool, because we know that prayer larcenies are very, it's very habitual. A thief is a habitual thing. He goes and he knows how to steal goats, he steals goats, and steal other animals and other farm produce. And there are examples across the island. I've been doing some visits. For example, St. Mary, when they take 1 or 2 thieves or predator larcenists out of the community, the reports fall dramatically. And I think, I'm not sure if it was Mr. Small earlier, mentioned something about the community approach and the teamwork approach to addressing the issue. Farmers Watch, we see as a very important tenet in the enforcement. And enforcement doesn't mean the police go and just visit a farm or do patrol. It means that the farmers, the target earning, and the other stakeholders put things in place. So when they're caught, they're brought before the courts and they are prosecuted. Mr. Turner also mentioned some of the difficulties and challenges that the system has in terms of it has been evolving over the years, and there seems to be this sympathy for predator larcenies or thieves who do conduct farm thefts. I've had an example where a police officer stated to me that they caught the person probably stealing jellies. They took the evidence, they carried them before the court, they did everything. And a matter of fact, and the person the farmer whose produce was stolen was in the court, and the judge basically asked the police what else he had and threw out the case and gave the thief the products of what the farmers produced to take with him. And this is disheartening. I would know that we have challenges. Farmers, let me tell you, we're gonna try our best. And we don't necessarily mean the police. We mean everyone here has a part to play. All of society, the consumers, the farmers, the stakeholders, the ministry officials, the legislators, we all have a role to play in addressing this scourge. And we call it a scourge because this is almost cancerous. And we can't allow it to spread any further. You would have heard me mention the aspect of in terms of, it was always criminal, but since the past couple of years, we have seen where gangs have infiltrated the system, and when they come with murder, and they come and they wipe out a farmer in no time. So they don't take for subsistence, which is legal, by the way, but they take and they just come to destroy. Okay, so the approach, the whole systematic approach, I think is the way to go. And I think all the presenters basically touch on aspects of the traceability, the legislative framework, and based on the discussion that we're having, the Agriculture Produce Act need to be strengthened, and all the surrounding acts of predator larceny prevention needs to be strengthened. and the regulations published for us to use that enforcement. And other attendant legislation needs to be strengthened and integrated in a way which they work with each other, not against each other. Because I think most of what the police has in terms of a tool is unlawful possession of property. And I think that's not enough. The traceability must go into that. So when it goes front to the judge, there is no doubt. I'm thinking that mandatory minimum must be placed in the picture when it's a farm theft to show the dangers. And I think Miss Maxine Brown spoke about the whole aspect of the effects on the farmers and how this affects our national the national genetics program in Jamaica. We have certain characteristics that if you kill off and slaughter all animals in one go, you lose certain characteristics. It affects our food policy. It has an economic effect on the farmer, the farmers themselves, the communities that they're in, and to a larger extent, Jamaica's food security. So it is a large, a wide, and far-reaching problem. Now, how do we go about it? Yes, the farmers have a responsibility. The police have a responsibility. The purveyors have a responsibility. The legislators have a responsibility. And all of the ministry officials from all the various attached ministries, Ministry of National Security, in terms of putting in policy in place, and also giving the police and the various sectors the resources that require, not necessarily vehicles, but the resources that require to tackle this problem. Going forward on the police side, we can say that there's a start. There are now approximately 7 units. Let me name just those units that we have here. 7 units established. St. Catherine have 2 units in fact, but one of the units don't have a dedicated vehicle. Units in Perdalas unit, Clarendon, Manchester, Trelawney, St. Mary, St. Anne, St. Thomas. And we would have seen in the past where these units are, they tend to be more enforcement of predation. However, I must add, on the JSF side, as far back as I can tell, because I've been involved in planning, I know that it is literally mandatory for all geographic divisions, 19 of them, to include some aspect of predation enforcement in their policing plans. And these are targets and these are performance indicators that are tracked and these are accumulated. Now, farmers' watch is a critical part that has always been a part of it, along with neighborhood watches and various aspects. This is also included in the JSF strategic plan, 3-year strategic plan, and is also included in the JSF 1-year operational plan. I would have seen that for myself, so I can verify that aspect is there. Now, having it in the plans and tracking it is one thing in terms of the framework, but in terms of the enforceability, that's another issue, because of course, having 1 unit in a parish, every station, as far as I am concerned, has the ability to do some form of farm visits and some form of patrolling. Yes, it is done. Ask the question, can it be done more? I agree, we can always do more with the limited resources that we have. But resources is needed in the sector in terms of us to protect the farmers. The farmers have a responsibility to make it more difficult for predation to target them. And I will go segue straight into that. Now, the farmers need to follow up and keep up with the laws, because the laws are in place for a reason, to protect the venture and the best interests of the farmers and also the consumers. Decrease the use of unoccupied land space. Now, I would have seen some areas and spoken to some farmers who would have been affected by predation. And for example, a lot of the goat farmers and don't get me wrong, thieves are not supposed to go after farmers, but there are situations where there is heavily bushed areas beside where they keep the animals. Matter of fact, a lot of times it's just something that is placed in a circle and the goats or the animals are in, and I'm talking about goats because that's the experience I've seen since lately, that are placed around them. There's little or no light and they're isolated. So when these thieves come, and matter of fact, most of these areas instances where this farm theft occur, they are ineffective farmers watch and non-existent farmers watch. And one of the speakers spoke about that. The farmers, let me tell you, a lot of farmers are just living bad. I don't understand why, but I think farmers need to unite with each other. They need to know the police numbers. I'm not saying that this is always the case, but where farmers and police, and one of our speakers spoke about it, are closer with the police, closer as a team, close with the community, it tends to deter criminals from infiltrating and stealing animals. A lot of the times, those same community members are the ones, when you pick up on this disunity, they take advantage of it. And I'm saying again, it's not the farmer's fault. Persons are supposed to grow their subsistence and benefit from it. And this is what this program is about. But there are some steps that farmers can take, in our estimation, to kind of reduce the chance of this happening. And one of them I'm going to speak about a little bit on the farmers watch, but let me just continue on some of these measures. So farmers must know that whether animals are produced, they must limit access to their property. Restrict access to your property by putting security barriers in place, fence, gates, etc. And of course, some level of debushing. Debushing remove heavy vegetation in and around your farm that may hinder visibility, act as hiding place for criminals or thieves, as Mr. Turner had said. Thieves don't want to be seen. They don't like light. They don't like noise. One other thing is that, and this, especially this one is larger farms, vetting and screening of employees is very important. A lot of the time, most of these are inside jobs. It is a good idea to conduct routine screening for employees where possible. Keep a picture ID of each employee. And seek the assistance of the local police to carry out background checks. They don't want to hire a thief on the farm, right? And we know that from the farm hands are not paid the best in the world for obvious reasons, because farming, you have to reduce your costs and try to make sure that your costs are kept low, your overheads are low. So that is always an issue. So they're more likely are the first suspects to coordinate some of these steps. And I've spoken to farmers, I've seen it happen. A lot of times this is the case. So they normally don't turn up at work that day or for some reason. So there's a belief that they're not a part of it, and they try to gain the trust of the farmers. Farmers trust your employees, but try to verify at all times. Very important. Rotation of workers. Matter of fact, this is where possible workers should be rotated in order to reduce complacency, which could lead to unfavorable behavior or unscrupulous practices. And it might seem simple, mark your property, because not only that the farmers lose produce, they lose tools. Place unique markings on your equipment for identification purposes. And of course, I know Mr. Turner very well. I visited his farm and he told me of a unique way where he marked, I can't mention it here because it's copyrighted, right, Mr. Turner? Mark some of his produce, and that is when, and the whole traceability issue, that is how he could have gone and traced back his property right down into the market with facts that these are my property. No one else has these markings or these characteristics. So that is also critical. Whereas farmers lack away their farm tools and equipment, because the equipment is just as important as the animals. They need to take care of your equipment. Animal identification would have spoken about the needs, and I think other speakers went very deep into it, and that's part of the and package up the traceability of your produce, livestock and otherwise. And very important, farmers must remain vigilant and alert. Work with neighbors. You have to live good with the neighbors. Local police to share information on suspicious activities, and that is where the Farmers Watch program comes in, and we're going to push on a strategic level right across, and I think we'll be working with RADA to assist us with some of their structures that they have to push and organize the farmers to fight the thieves that are targeting them, to reduce the impact on them. Because when I know for a fact that if the farmers are united, it makes it more difficult and makes it more traceable, and they can track the criminals, and they can work a lot better with the police and be more coordinated. And first, and listen, report all suspicious activities to the police. If you witness a theft, because they might thief from Farmer John today, but tomorrow it's your time. A thief is a thief, and thieves thrive off opportunities. You call local police emergency 119. You try to get the numbers of the persons at the station, the SWAPs in charge of the closest station. If not, you call 119. You call all of these avenues. You call Crime Stop, and they might dispatch something. And please follow up with some of these investigations. A lot of police have said that when they heard of a theft on a farm and they go to the farmer said, hey, I'm not giving you any statement. It could be that this is out of fear based on what has been happening, or out of frustration, or both. So it is important that the reports come in. And let me explain why the report is so important. And I know that we have been here some negative issues, but those are not the norm. All right. When I first joined the unit, I was trying to look at the stats to see how can I look at the patterns, because we normally, as an analyst, you look at the patterns of crime, how it occurs, when it occurs, whatever produce they go after, which areas are more likely, because you have limited resources. You want to place the resources closer to where the crime is occurring to catch the criminals, to either intercept the criminals in or intercept the criminals out, or to deter them from committing the acts. Now, when I looked, I asked for as far back as possible. I said, get all of the data, and I want to put it on a map. I want to see a heat map. It's the first thing, it can be verified. It's the first thing I brought with me. What happened was that when I saw, and the thing was saying 960, matter of fact, reported. I was at 960 reported. That's over from 2014 till current. We have over 1,000 murders per year. How can a legislative body take us serious? How can the stakeholders take us serious when all we are seeing is 900 acts of predation being reported versus 1,001 murders being reported every year? Murder and robbery and shootings are going to go to the top of the scale. It's a numbers game at the end of the day. We know that there are a lot more, and I've said it on a program. I'm almost sure it's less than 10% of the act of predation is recorded, is reported, is appreciated. And I'm not saying that all of this is on the hands of the farmers. All the stakeholders, the police, have a role to play in this, to follow up on these reports and ensure that we do what we are supposed to do in the whole situation. We have also asked farmers not to be predictable, stagger hours. I know I went to St. Mary, Portland, and there was this farmer. When he visits this farm, he drives his car and he parks at a certain location. So I tell the farmer, leave the car there and take taxi, just to at least throw the thieves off, because they're stealing these jellies on a regular basis, and they try to monitor. And trust me, these thieves, they study and they organize their theft activities. And matter of fact, what I've found out for each farming district, there's always seems to be a peak time when thieves, they steal farm produce. For example, Wednesdays and Thursdays are prime, Friday to a lesser extent. Closer to this time of the year or closer to major holidays, animals, ruminants are stolen. So there's some pattern. Looking at this pattern, then we can develop programs and strategize. We need all of these. So putting the reports in, as the point I was making, help us to monitor and put things in place, put patrols. I can tell you, between Orange Bay in Portland to Port Antonio, thereabout, there's a strip of land right there where I know animals get missing right there. In Mansion Hill, the jelly, theft of jelly and so forth is very high, and they come a certain time of the night. I could tell you that the crime ban for agriculture theft is between 12 and 5 a.m. Listen, every time you hear that any large amount of this happening, it occurs within that time ban. That was the first thing I want, and that's why I delved into the data. We have to use the data as a part of the whole system, use what's available, look at historical pattern to kind of have a predictive nature, to put out patrols. I can tell the murder ban is slightly different. It's a lot earlier, okay? And police set their patrol systems to target when it happens. In my shift, that's why getting continuous updated data will help us in getting that done. And I know that we have been saying that we need farmers to report, but this is the reason why you need to report, because we need to put systems in place and set patrol zones. When we say police must patrol these areas, patrol these streets, because the likelihood of encountering a predator or deterring them is very high if we go to certain areas. If they switch, we can look at the data and see where and speak to the farmers and look at the patterns again. And that is all that is done. So I'm giving an insight of how some of these things work within the police force. Lighting is very important. Most instances where these farms, well, I say it's night, most of the thefts occur. So lighting obviously is very important, especially animals. During the day, of course, if they steal produce, like your vegetables and so forth, fencing is very important, but they likely come in the dead of night and do the most of the stealing. We have also said installing surveillance devices. It is critical that we try as best as is practicable to put up cameras. You can put up solar cameras and so forth. I know farmers that have put up cameras and the persons wear masks and they come, but at least so anytime these act as deterrent. When they see all these, they see fences, they see camera, they see light, and they see a proper goat house, well secure, with lots of dogs around, although they might poison the dogs, because I've seen cases where they have poisoned dogs and then they then come. But at least it starts with the dogs dying, you know that something is up, okay? And so these are not all that can be done, but these are part and parcel of what can be done. Farmers must look at the area that they're in, look at the vulnerabilities. And unfortunately, 2 farmers, goat farmers, lost their lives. And we condolences to those farmers that lost their lives. It came into report that 2 farmers carried their goats to graze, and they never came back alive. And it's very unfortunate that farmers are making a living and persons are targeting them. And our condolences go to the family members of those persons who would have lost their goats and their lives. So that is where I am. I know that we have to have a time for questioning. I'm not sure if I've talked about my time. I could probably talk all night, but I'd rather not. And ditto to all the previous presenters, predator is our problem. It's a national problem. It's a national scourge. It is responsibility about the farmers, the police, and all the stakeholders, and including the consumers who probably have knowledge, suspect that these meats or these produce are ill-gotten gains, and they participate because they're getting a better price. It is us to able to trace and prosecute in order to protect the farmers, and for farmers to put in measures, basic measures within their means as best as possible to protect, to harden, we say harden, but it's actually to deter criminals. Us, the police, I can say that we will strengthen our activities in the farming belts. We're looking at doing covert operations and some deterrence. You drive through the farming areas in the crime ban and you at least use the lights, the police lights. And of course, when the radar car comes out with the light, the covert vehicle goes in, I will try to catch some of these criminals. It might be a deterrence because when a criminal knows that the police is in the area, just like a neighborhood, good neighborhood watch program, it tends to deter them. Now, I'm not sure how many persons on the platform would be privy to or a part of a Farmers Watch program, but there are some basic things that needs to be part of a good Farmers Watch program. And some of these include, so before a Farm Watch can be deemed ready for an official launch, the following criteria must be met. The group must be organized in a single body and be sensitized on the concept. The group must have a name, all right? So it doesn't have to be a community Farmers Watch. It can be communities can come together and we can look at how RADA organize themselves and try to use that system to try and mimic to have a regional level Farmers Watch, parish by parish, organize and organize nationally and be recognized by the ministry itself. I know there are plans afoot to kind of launch it nationally. Must have stated objective to include the implementation of best practices to minimize opportunities for loss due to stealing, so the same target hardening and so forth. Must have an executive body with a sitting presidency, must elect a president, okay? And have an executive with various functions. Must agree on a state slate of agreed strategies. So each community have different issues affecting them. All the places laid out whether it's a rural, semi-rural, or otherwise, it impacts how you set up. So no two farmers watch group will be the same in terms of characteristics and membership. Some persons just farm produce, some persons farm animals, and so forth. So it is important that we organize in this manner. And displaying of visible signs, that is also a requirement. Develop an early warning system to alert farmers. So you see a strange thing in the farming area is about 3 or 4 miles wide or long, and the road starts here, cuts through the middle. Farmer A sees something happening. I see a strange vehicle coming in. I'm not seeing a vehicle for the problem up to no good. There's a WhatsApp group, they share this information, and everybody start monitoring it. All the eyes are open, all the persons are alert. This person can actually alert the local police. So if there's a couple mile away, they can probably start enter the community to start do a patrol or something, or set up a roadblock if that's the case, to ask this person what their reasons for being there. And they must be endorsed by the local police. Very critical. You can't just farmers watch and it's just yourself alone and you engage in vigilante justice. And we do not encourage persons to engage in vigilante justice because that is murder. Mob killing is murder. I know the frustration might come, but mob killing is murder. So I was given 20 minutes. I think I've taken up all my 20 minutes. Matter of fact, 21 minutes. So I'll hand over to the moderators and thank you for your time.
Thank you, Superintendent Pasco. We so appreciate your energy and your the vibes that you bring to this office. If you don't mind, as we go into the question and answer segment, and we're going to open our lines now to other participants, it might be a good time for him to talk to us about the tasers. That's something I have a personal interest in. I don't know about you as a farmer. What do you think?
Before you speak about the taser, because you must speak about it tonight, the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries takes last serious.
Yes.
And the Minister, our Permanent Secretary, and our CEO of RADA, they have discussed it intensely. And the revamping of the pre-disaster unit is evidence. And since the revamping, this is our first sensitization. I was just looking at some data here where imports of goat meat, fresh, chilled, or frozen, for 2019, the value is over 301,000 US. When you look at the imports of lamb and mutton, it's over 7 million US. And when you look at imports of beef, it's over 35 million US. So we're talking about a serious industry, and that's why the ministry has to take the lead role. So having a pre-disaster unit and having a sensitization like this to bring out collaboration, to have all hands on board or hands on deck, it's paramount.
And one of the takeaways that we want particular our farmers to have is the encouragement, the hope that we want to instill into this vital sector, to say that help is not only on the way, but help is here. And there's an opportunity to cut expensive imports if we can get our farmers back into farming. Superintendent Pasco, Mr. Turner raised the issue of the tasers, which in your language is what we call a less lethal option. Would you just talk to us about the possibility of that as we open our mics to other participants? I noticed my good friend is on from Clarendon, Deputy Superintendent Cardoza. or probably his superintendent now. I have stopped checking. And Inspector Clark, my colleague from way back then when we were at the National Police College of Jamaica. Welcome, gentlemen. I recognize you. Superintendent Pascal, tasers as an option for farmers.
Okay. Afternoon again. Well, matter of fact, Mr. Turner probably has not indicated that we had a lengthy discussion when I visited this farm last month about the use of tasers. And I think it came out of the fact that the legislative framework and the prosecutorial framework has decreased its potency in the prosecution of thieves, farm thieves. Yeah? And they tend to be more on the human rights side, which is very important, don't get me wrong. But the rights of the farmers has been diminished as just some produce, just a goat or so forth. I think one thing we discussed with him, said, well, I wasn't sure about the legal framework, because if that farmer was to get that taser and was to deploy that taser, there has to be a legislative framework to support the use of a taser. Because I'm almost sure that there's probably no laws except for policies in the police force for the use of tasers. And I think that is where we need to go to explore if it's a legal, viable option as a defense mechanism for farmers to use. Because if I understand, tasers can be lethal if the person that is affects has certain health conditions. So that is always a part of it. Is it that farmers just go out and see somebody on the farm and just tase them because they're not supposed to be on the farm and just tase them? There can be abuse of this taser. So there are a lot of things. It has to be considered carefully in terms of a policy framework. And of course, the political director would have to make a decision on that. And then of course, the legislation will follow, and the framework would take care of itself. And I know that Mr. Turner would have expounded on the fact that if you were to catch a thief on your farm and you were to call in the police, there are certain limitations and certain considerations that a lot of persons see as against the farmer. But it is there to protect the human rights. Remember the Charter of Rights. And so it is important. I think if executed properly, it could be a good defense mechanism. But let me hasten to add, the fact that gangs are involved in this, it changes how we look at it. Say you go there with a taser and a gangster has a rifle or a gun. I don't see the taser winning that battle. And that is some of the consideration. Some person might say, well, give all the farmers a licensed firearm. But if the thieves know that the farmers have licensed firearm, they're gonna come with a larger number of weapons. And of course, you'd have seen in March Pen, they're gonna lay down a proper suppression fire to intimidate, because intimidation is one of the tools that gangsters and criminals use. Intimidation and force to take your produce away. So in answering that, it's a good idea, but it must take in concept of the landscape that we're in, the changing nature of predatory larceny, and also the human right aspect and the human right aspect and the whole framework and policies and governance of the use of these tasers into context if you were to implement it.
Thank you, Superintendent Pasco. I like the approach. We're going to start somewhere. We need to give the farmers a fighting chance. And it is only going to be a matter of time before all the farmers become disencouraged, unless we give them the assurance that we're on their side. Thank you so much for that word of assurance. We appreciate that. There are 3 questions that have come in. We're going to recognize you, Mr. Turner, and then after that, we're going to answer the question of the wardens and the question of the electric fence. Mr. Turner.
Thank you very much. We talk about human rights, and I pause because farmers have human rights. Don't we, farmers? All
Yes,
you
sir.
farmers out there, don't we have rights as well? And the thief made a choice. He stepped off of the public thoroughfare. He stepped onto your farm. He walked into your melon patch. And he's a thief. And he bagged up and stole your melons.
Premeditated.
And he planned it at 3 o'clock in the morning when he knows that you're dead or asleep. But if you gave him a taser, by God, he would be hiding and watching you pick up those melons. And he'd be hiding behind a bush or in the ditch, covered up with guinea grass. And as you step out, he would hold you. He would handcuff you to the guango tree so you can't move. And he would handcuff your feet so you can't walk. That's what we must be talking about in these forums, gentlemen. Positive interdiction. I agree you can't shoot a man. I agree you can't put together a posse and beat him to death to hold him. This is safe interdiction to save the farmer from getting hurt or shot and killed, and hold on to a thief in a controlled manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Sir Turner. I want you to know that you're preaching to the choir on this side. I firmly believe in your recommendation. And I was just saying to Sir Simpson, let's start somewhere. Let's lay that recommendation to the powers that be and start the conversation. So that's one of the takeaways that we are going to have from this conversation. Superintendent Pasco, you might want to take the opportunity to tell us what are the plans, as far as you know, for the setting up or the reintroduction of the agricultural wardens program. That came as a question.
Okay, so as you would have been aware, there's an advanced discussion based on what I've seen since I've joined the unit of revamping this program. There are estimates that were looked at and are being looked at, and I think there is a foot by at least next financial year to start the whole process of recruiting persons. And I think they're at the stage where they're finalizing the arrangement, the internal arrangement between the JSF and the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries. So the plans are advanced. I'm not in a position to say how far it is, because it's a Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries initiative. So, but I know that it's advanced. Matter of fact, it's one of the things I saw in coming in. I heard about it because I know it has been in the news. And when you do some basic research, you can previous minister, and I came in and I said that I think this is a good idea. I support it 100% because you cannot have too much boots on the ground, and they need mobility. Persons complain on the time that the police are too slow to reach them. So getting motorbikes, additional vehicles, mobility for a quick response situation would always be a good thing. So I'm in 100% support. I think there are plans to phase it over at least a 3-year period. I can't say what the numbers will be because it's all limited on the budget side. And of course, so that is the way forward. It will really help, and then getting more units in the JCF built out, and of course augmented these units with these people would have said in the past rangers, but they're really wardens, agriculture wardens, giving them certain powers of arrest. I think we would have spoken about that in previous meetings. So it is a very good idea, and I know that it is an advanced stage, and we are open, praying that it actually comes into fruition as early as next financial year, before next financial year finishes.
Thank you very much, Superintendent Pascal. We really appreciate that. And it can only add value to the collective efforts if we have more boots on the ground, particularly persons who will know the terrain and know the neighborhood, as is my friend, Mr. Henry from, no, let me not tell him where you're from. So Henry, I recognize your hand, please.
Okay, good night, everyone. All protocols observed. I first want to thank all the stakeholders here and everybody who has given their 2 cents, and definitely want to thank the JCF for their contribution so far. But let us really look at the issue for what it really is. It is no longer petty theft. It can no longer be handled with a taser. It is now gang related. They are now using it to fund the gangs. It has grown into a monster that needs a swift and heavy approach to deal with, right? The legislations which are there and the laws to penalize these persons when they're caught it's a joke compared to something as simple as even the act if you get a dog bite, where you can get fined up to $3 million. I think the fine for predatory larceny now is still $250, $250,000, or 6 months in jail. And that is a joke compared to one farmer being wiped out with 50 animals valuing over $5 million. You know, it's not a deterrent at all. And the next thing is, yes, you can't have all the farmers bearing arms, because there comes a responsibility as it relates to that, and we can't go around just shooting people at will. But what is the answer really? And as you say, with the lights and the cameras and the dogs and all the deterrents, if the thief know that the farmers are armed, that's also a deterrent. So we have to look at all of this collectively and say, how do we really go forward? Yes, we have to start somewhere, but we have been trying to start somewhere for years now. And it has grown to a point where they're trading meat for guns. They're trading meat for ganja. And it's not so much getting back into the butcher shop or the supermarkets or just those basic traceability anymore. It's gone way underground. And the whole idea of the passport and the tagging of animals, they cut off the ears. They leave the head same place. The farmers are really, really discouraged. And it's at a point now where if you're stopping my livelihood and my ability to enhance my family, to feed my family, to contribute to society, you know, you have to wait 9 months for a cycle for a goat to kid and mature and for you to see that genetics. It is next to murder. You're slowly killing the farmers. So we really need more than just starting somewhere, more than just these basic frameworks and tasers and all these things. A task force really needs to be put together where we can go in and really hammer out. Because it is my belief that the government has the technology, the Jamaica Eye, and stuff like that to do the necessary investigations. We see the pull and we see the power of the police force whenever a police officer goes down, which everybody regrets. But all hands are on deck and the perpetrator is caught within hours. The incident on Marchpen Road last week was a direct slap in the face and a direct message to all farmers. The incident today, or last night, with the 2 farmers found dead, was a direct slap to the family members and to the farming community. Yes, we have to report the incident, but we are afraid. And if they can use fear as a tool to deter us, we need now to intimidate them. They need to know that either the penalties for the crime is so severe that they don't want to do it. The rewards aren't there, so it doesn't make sense. Or it's next to them losing their life. So, you know, I open to any comments or corrections moving forward. Thank you.
And thank you so much, Sir Henry. We have taken notes of the actionable items. And in creating this event, one of the things that we agreed with Superintendent Pascal and with RADA is that we're going to come away with some action items, and we're going to start with the low-hanging fruits. Some of the things we are already doing, but you have added value and energy to this. And not only are we going to act on it, but we'll give you feedback. Thanks for your comments. Okay, we're going to go to Well, let me answer a question having to do with electric fence. To make it easy for you, we are going to share with you the standards and guidelines developed by the Bureau of Standards. They, in fact, put out an article on the use of electric fence. We're just going to share it with you so you can educate yourselves that way. We have 3 hands up. We're going to take Marius Small and then Young, no, Gordon and then Young. So Small, Gordon, Young, please be mindful that we have a time constraint. Small, please. If Small isn't ready, let's go to. Yeah. Okay, if Small isn't ready, then we go to Gordon, please.
Yes, hello. Hello.
You have the floor. Please go ahead.
Okay. Yes, 2 things. I would like to know how to get in touch with the superintendent. And on the other thing, I'd like to debunk the idea, as a person who served in the U.S. military at various levels and also served in federal law enforcement in the U.S., I would like to debunk the idea of anyone who would like to get a taser. As the superintendent well knows, if you use a taser, you have to have a plan B. And if a farmer only has a taser, there's no plan B. So you're just putting yourself in harm's way if all you have is a taser to use on. There's a reason law enforcement shoots center mass, right? And that's so that individual will not come back at them. Or if you shoot center mass, meaning you're basically if you don't shoot center mass, you cannot go to the courts and say, listen, my life was in imminent danger. Right? So the taser might be a stopgap measure if you have a weapon, but a taser should not be utilized if you do not have a weapon on your person. You're just putting yourself in harm's way.
And we thank you for that lesson. Certainly, you are absolutely correct, but we'll put that as part of the conversation. In terms of Superintendent Pasco, we will share his number at the end of this presentation. We go over to Gabriel Young, please. Gabriel, if you are ready, it's your opportunity. If not, we go over to Ruel. And at the end, we're going to share a number 2 with someone who is offering to lead a conversation in technological responses. We will give you an opportunity at the end to share that number.
Sorry. I was trying to figure out how to unmute myself. Good night. Good night, sis, and everybody. I'm one of the few, I'm a female, right? And I've been farming for over 11 years, and I've also been in the field for over 20 years. And I am, to say disturbed by what is happening is an understatement. I'm also a mother of 2 little boys. And I am reaching the stage where I am wondering if this is worth it. And I have a significant investment in my farm in Clarendon, a very significant investment, and I do not know what to do anymore. I have put in dogs that come at significant cost. I have put in cameras that I'm talking about. My estimate for the cameras were like $600,000. Who pays for this? People talk about investments, and that $600,000 could have done something else on the farm, you know, and it seems never ending. I'm trying my best to do everything I can, barring getting a firearm, which I'm very much against, right? For personal reasons. So, I mean, I really think that the government and the JCF, I know y'all are trying, but I don't feel confident. And as a woman, I'm deadly afraid. So I mean, I'm not trying to be emotional. I'm just trying to tell you really what is happening out there. And I don't know what left to do. I have dogs, I have security fencing, I have housing, I have cameras. And I still feel as if I am open to the elements. I go to my local police station, I talk to them, they do try and help, but how much can they do?
And thank you for sharing that. I'm sure Superintendent Pasco would like to respond, but we do have on this platform two of my friends who are police officers in Clarendon. Any of the officers in Clarendon, you might want to respond to Gabriel, please. Gar Cardoza, are you still there, or Inspector Clark? Can you find them on the platform for me? Inspector Clark, there he is. Yes. Inspector Clark, are you still with us?
Right, sir. I'm here. Good evening to everyone.
We have a citizen over in your neck of the woods that feels a little frustrated. She has done the best she can. Have you ever visited her facility?
Well, I'm not certain who is speaking, but I would love to get in touch with her and we could have some discussion and see what exactly is happening in her part. Clarendon is a large parish. And
okay, I'm in Rhinesbury, sir. I'm in Rhinesbury, and right around me, the whole bordering neighborhood of me, Comfort, Rhinesbury.
Police station. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I go there all the time, sir. I'm a regular.
Okay, okay.
Right? And we go and goats are being stolen right around us. Gravel Hill, Comfort, Rhinesbury, it's happening almost on a weekly basis. And probably the only thing that protects me is I have some really huge dogs that will kill somebody. Right? And you know, it's an investment for me. It is my retirement plan. It's not a joke thing for me. I take it very seriously. And I feel like I need to stop and I need to come out of this business because it's not worth my life. I'd like to see my sons grow. And it's really, I mean, just 2 weeks ago, right at my back fence, they stole 2 goats from a lady. They just pulled up and took 2 goats. You know, it's I don't know.
Well, from the police side, we have been looking at the data. We'd have a look at the statistics, and we would have put patrols in place to somewhat deter or catch some of these persons. And we have caught some of these persons, but there are several of them out there, and we'll continue to do what we do. We try to study and make analysis of the information we're getting. And that is why we're encouraging persons to report, because a lot of persons are not reporting. And because they don't report, these things keep on going on. When they report it, we can do more because we cannot be in these spaces because, as I said, the parish is large. 4 Pass police area is very large. The police unit cannot be everywhere right through the day. So we use the statistics to inform our patrols, to inform our strategies. So we just encourage persons to continue to report and to share information about suspicious persons in the space as much as possible. So we do our part, you do our part, and we see how best we can nab these persons.
Thanks a lot, Inspector Clark, and I do hope I'll get the opportunity to see you during the season. And I'm sure Superintendent Pasco is prepared to give his support to your efforts on the ground. We are pushing to 8 o'clock. We're going to take Ruel, and then I'm going to yield to my fellow moderator who will bring it to a close. Ruel, are you there?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, we're hearing you clear enough.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, good evening. Good evening to you. Good evening. Yes, sir. Good evening to you. Good evening to all on the forum. It has been very enlightening and also very interesting. One of the things is that I am a telecommunications engineer, and one of also different type of sensors. Yes, so it is not will solve all the problems, but cameras are very cumbersome. There are the affordable technologies that are here with us right now that can enable us, especially in our farms, to track and trace and to detect all kind of different type of movements, dealing with different type of sensors. I am a remote expert at guns. And earlier on, there's a gentleman that talking about the task force. We need to form the task force. When these incidents happen, it's happening quick. So what really happen? We need a rapid call system. The police need someone who with the security measures who are the enforcers need to be alerted quickly, very quickly. These incidents happen very quickly. It can't happen and then tomorrow morning, then someone going to the police to report this incident. When something happen on a farm, someone need to know quick. So what we really need is an early warning system and a rapid alert system for farmers and for all the interests in the agriculture sector. And there also need to be a proper tracking and tracing system, not a system that is manual, a system that is electronically connected. A goat, when someone go into the field and when the goat is running, a phone can go off and say, listen, my goat is running. Someone can see on their phone and the GPS where the goat is going. And there are technologies, just like how you have the cell phone system that can have a deep penetration in the forest and in the deep foliage. There are technologies that can track things in the deep wilderness. It has been done. Scientists have been using these things to track wild animals when they are doing their research. They use it to track creatures in the ocean, and there's the existing technology that is coming on stream now, so farmers can use to track their animals, even if they bury the animal on the ground. There are wireless technologies to find those animals. And this is my specialty. This is what I do. Wireless communications is my specialty. And I can help the force. I can help. And I would like to be a part of this task force to help the farmers. I'm also a farmer, and I'm also suffering. I'm located here in Western Jamaica, and we are also suffering here. The two farmers that die is not far from where I'm living here. So, it's very serious. I'm willing to join a task force. The JCF need to start this task force with the Farmers Watch. The farmers need to even have two-way radios with the police or different areas where they can rapid call. We need a rapid call system, not a system where as something happen, there's this long delay. The animal gone and man cook the animal and eat it long time and sell it. And maybe it end up in Haiti and it don't even report yet or somewhere else. So we need a rapid call system using two-way radios. We need to talk to the ministry so the farmers can be equipped with equipment to alert the authorities very quickly. Thank you very much, sir.
And thank you.
Good night.
Thank you very much. We will ask for your number as we get to the close so that we can...
Just to add something real quickly before we close. Seeing that we're taking away action items, is it possible for RADA and the other necessary stakeholders to come up with some form of grant or program through USAID or whichever funding body to assist the farmers with purchasing some of these technologies or camera systems or tracking devices? Because it's all good and well we put in the electric fences and stuff, but these come at high cost. And majority of the farmers aren't in a financial position or stable enough to assume a lot of these expenses.
Thank you. Mr. Simpson just made a note of that. Okay, so we're going to wrap up from our presenters. We're going to start with Dr. Watson, whose hand is up, and then we're going to go through the others and then yield to Mr. Simpson, who's closing at 8. Dr. Watson, please.
Thank you very much, my friends. Now, I must say, I must also endorse, it's a very good session this afternoon. If we had the time, I think this good group would go all night to discuss this very important matter. And I think we need to have it very soon in the near future. Now, I heard about the technologies and all of that. And I know the police cannot be everywhere right throughout. Now, there are specific farming communities which have challenges. You know, the lower Clarendon area, well, Clarendon in general, those I know of a fact, I'm from Clarendon, and those farmers suffer. They suffer from the smallest farmer having one plantain tree to 3 orange tree or whatever it is that they use to sustain themselves. They suffer. Now, I think that one of the things that must be looked at in the near future is to equip each police division, I'll probably go down to each police station, with drone technology, so that if it's one officer on duty, he can monitor an entire area and call for backup where it's necessary. I mean, the technologies are there. Let us use it. We talk about having a few wardens, but if we equip the police with what they need, I am sure that we will reach very far with the little. I think the value of Prida Lastly is nothing to compare with the cost of a drone. It's billions of dollars it's costing these farmers. They are bleeding. The country is bleeding. We have to be importing. Mr. Simpson mentioned the amount, the millions of US dollars we are spending. Prida Lastly is one reason for that, because a lot of persons are scared to go in. So let us, I think we all need to come together and find the solutions to this scourge, that is affecting Jamaica's success and moving forward in the future as a country, as a developed country. Thank you.
If Sears is ready for his minute, or Maxine Brown, either.
Sears is ready.
Yes, Devon, thank you. I got your name right this time, Sears. I keep calling you Devon, that's why I didn't pronounce your name properly. You're Devon to me.
All right. Thank you. From my perspective, it was a good session. I enjoyed everybody's contribution, and I take the points that everybody made as valid. So in my wrapping up, I just like to keep it where I started, at the community level. You know, taking off the ministry shirt tonight at a community level as a farmer. A lot of times in the communities, the farmers are not speaking with each other. Your neighbor animal is stolen and nobody knows. We can't continue with that. So I'm encouraging the farmers tonight, in your groups, in your community, communicate with each other, share information, educate each other about the ways to protect and secure your farm. Let's get back to farming as a community. Let's get back in growing our crops for the benefit of the community. Once the farmers start to share and communicate, in my community has been proven. We used to have animal theft on a weekly basis. Once we started to communicate with each other and share information, it went down. I'm not saying that it's foolproof, but with the unifying element in the community, it can be a barrier, even better than having guns. Thank you and good night.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Devon. I appreciate that. In a conversation with Superintendent Pasco, he indicated that part of the way going forward in the near future is to recognize those farm watch groups that are functional based on the 7 points he shared earlier. And I think I want to recommend your group as one of those that will be officially recognized and launched by the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries. Thank you so much. We go to Lady Maxine with her minute, please.
Okay, good evening again, everyone. From RADA's perspective, I must say that I have listened, because that was one of my objectives, to really hear what are some of the recommendations that will be put forward, because we know that not any one entity has the solution. So I have listened. I have heard some recommendations that yes, RADA really can work along with the farmers to assist in implementing some of it. So that is something that we will start to work on. And I must confirm also what Mr. Sayers is saying, that it's really the community that has to at least start that kind of action. And I will say that even if you don't like your neighbor, just be a good citizen and look out for anything that is happening on their farm, because as it was mentioned in the meeting, thieves are thieves. And when they go to your neighbor and they see what your neighbor has, they're coming for you next. So just look out for each other, even if you don't like each other, just the principle of being a good neighbor. So I'm very pleased to have been a part of this session, and I'm energized. Like, I know persons feel defeated and feel deflated, but I think it's for the first time that I've seen a lot of persons coming together seriously with recommendations as to what are some of the things that we can do. Some are low hanging, some are going to take a little time, but we are willing to work towards it. And just to say, the last thing is that, you know, courage is not the absence of fear, it's doing the thing even though you are afraid. So we are all afraid, but let us be courageous and continue the good fight so that we can ensure that we have safe food to consume and make Jamaica food secure. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Lady Maxine. We appreciate that. I noticed that my friend, Mr. Simpson, is writing a whole lot. I saw him write down something about drones. I saw him write down something about phones. I'm anxious to hear what he says. But let's go to Mr. Turner with his last minute, and then Superintendent Pasco will wrap it up, and then Sir Simpson will close.
Thank you very much, Bishop. I seem to have taken up a lot of time. Only to summarize this way, let's be careful about the electronic side. We put in motion detectors with SIM cards to guide us where the thieves were crossing the boundary. And that worked in a manner of speaking. We put out remote cameras with SIM cards connected to Digicel. They stole those. We lost about 5 of them. The drone, we watch too many war movies. What the Americans and the powerful countries have up in the sky is a far cry from a little DJI Mavic Pro. And you fly the DJI Mavic Pro around, it only lasts 15 or 20 minutes, and the thieves are wrapped up like Taliban, so you can't identify them. So let's step there cautiously and be very careful about committing millions of dollars in these electronics until we've got a system that actually works. Arming yourself with a gun when you have a taser, terribly important, a great suggestion. I should have mentioned that. That also has to be part of your defense mechanism when you're going into interdiction. Wardens, I was part of the team in 1983 that launched the Wardens the first time round. And we all thought the Wardens were going to be great, but they got set aside for funding, and we're back to the DC. The DC is a warden. The district constable is a policeman that stays in the station. He knows the communities. Uplift the DC. He's a bloody good chap. He's the ones that most time takes all the agricultural cases to the courts because he knows the people in the community. He knows how to handle the agricultural cases of theft. But like everyone has said so far, it's a great meeting. Let's keep the motion going. Let's keep the momentum going. Let's uplift the farmers of Jamaica. Thank you.
Thank you. And the final word from me before I yield to SP Pasco and Mr. Simpson is this. I will take the lead on setting up those community groups, the farm groups. Look out for me. I'll come out there. I'll help you organize it based on the protocols spoken of by our head of the pre-deadline prevention team, Superintendent Pasco, And not only are we going to assist you in setting up, but we're going to track it to make sure that this works. I yield to Superintendent Pasco, who has the impossible task to speak for a minute before handing back to my co-moderator, Mr. Simpson. Super Pasco.
Good afternoon. Fine for final. This has been a very good session. And I think a lot of points, and as was noted earlier, Mr. Simpson was taking a lot of notes. And I know that based on our prior discussions, the collaboration between the unit, the ministry, and the collaboration between the unit, the ministry, and especially the RADA. RADA, everyone know that RADA have an extensive unit and influence with a lot of the farmers. And we're thinking that one of the low-hanging fruits with not a lot of funding is the Farmers Watch program. Most all of the other solutions basically take funding and time and effort. So if effort is put in it, and I have been discussion with Dr. Welch, and he would have volunteered to basically lead this aspect, to be a leader in this area. He has a lot of influence in terms of, well, he retired recently, but he has a lot of influence, put it that way. And he's a farmer himself, and he has a lot of passion and energy. And we're gonna work as a team, but we'll have to have a sector leader in developing this, because for all, when I looked at a map of RADA, I shows all the various communities, farming communities, and they are segmented into sectors and into parishes and so forth and so forth. That's a very good structure in which to build programs on and ensure that we cover Jamaica and we have all the blocks covered. And of course, in an earlier meeting, Mr. Simpson had mentioned about performance management. So we're going to look at what is there. What are some of the Farmers Watches program that are active, the one that need to be resuscitated, and then get an idea of what we need to do in terms of farming new watches and then monitor those. Not only farming watches and monitoring them, but also ensure that we inject a lot of ideas out of and into these watches, and we try to integrate. And I would say one thing in all of what we're saying, all the speakers would have been pushing to this. Together we stand, divided we fall. That's it.
Thank you, sir. Over to you, Sir Simpson.
Thank you, Superintendent Pasco, and a big thanks to all our panelists. It is indeed a pleasure for me to moderate this evening alongside Bishop Welch. Let me use this opportunity to recognize Mr. Fulton from the JAS, and his questions will be answered as we move along. It's a pity I didn't see his hand raised earlier. But let me just say, Superintendent Pasco has made a mention of the wardens, and the minister and the permanent secretary is gung-ho and making sure that this unit comes to reality. And as Superintendent Pasco said before, work are quite advanced. I also want to say that the RADA network, in collaboration with the Pre-Dead Last unit and the ministry, have acquired some expensive drones.
Wow.
And they will be for use by the Pre-Dead Last unit. I heard they can cover so much miles from Kingston to Mandeville and back, recording everything. And so these will be used to enhance the services of the Pre-Dead Last unit. We have also been very cognizant of recommendations from various groups and units as it speaks to intelligence gathering. And so I know the Pre-Dead Last unit has taken this serious. And as such, our RADA network, being the premier agricultural extension arm of the Ministry of Agriculture, and has a network which covers the entire island and has over 800 registered groups, will be inviting the pre-liaison unit and the police to participate in these group sessions to make sure we put a dent into this scourge. I must also say that, and I saw someone put up off-grid, no need for SIM cards and digicells and phones. Well, let me say, and I think I would take a little advice on that. I think there are 7 divisions within the JCF now that is active as related to pre-liaison. And the Ministry of Agriculture and RADA has thought it necessary to make telephones available to each divisional head, so that when these numbers are published earlier this evening, starting with the first 2 in the most prone areas, when a call is made, it goes straight to the divisional head, and that call will be answered. That's a plus. And we intend to populate all the divisions. We intend to populate these divisions to make sure that we have them with the police force. On screen now, you could see the numbers for Bishop Dr. Gary Welch, retired Assistant Commissioner, and that's his numbers. As you see them there, let me call it 819-3902.
That's my personal number. The second number, I think, is which will go on to one of the division, right?
Yes.
Okay.
357-6590. And Superintendent Pasco, 381-5790. And the other, 357-6597.
And let them know that those numbers, the second numbers, are in fact the numbers that will go.
The 2 last numbers, the second one for Dr. Welch,
The 357.
and the 357-6590, and the 357-6597 will go to the divisional heads of St. Catherine and Clarendon, respectively. This will assist for the intelligence gathering, it will assist the pre-liaison unit, and it will also assist the farmers in a great way in communicating. This session is not over. It's not over because we intend to continue these sessions for at least every 3 months. And as Superintendent Pasco said earlier, we will be having monitoring and evaluation as it relates to what we have, what we need to achieve. The Jamaica Agricultural Society will be brought in on this also. And we must make sure that all agencies, all stakeholders are on board. So this session, even if some persons did not get a fulsome moment to speak or to participate, it's just because of it's the first one for now. But we intend to have these sessions and continue. This session is on YouTube and it's recorded. And if you miss anything, feel free to go on YouTube and follow. And we intend to take all views, all views content. As this pre-liaison unit expands and the RADA continue to facilitate whatever is necessary, I want to say thanks to our CEO, Mrs. Marina Young, who has supported this venture. Thanks to the permanent secretary, to the minister, we got a quick go ahead for this session. And as you would all recognize, it is quite timely because of the seeds we're in. It doesn't mean that we're going to stop here. And I want to make sure that the support continues. There are suggestions to involve a public-private sector partnership, and that will go a far way. And to be looking at motorbikes, looking at other tools and equipment that could be used, other intelligence equipment that could assist the Regional Liaison Unit in accomplishing their goals. It is indeed a great afternoon, and I feel that we have achieved something. And without you, the participants, without the over, or I think under 100 participants that we had on block for such a, what you would say, a very quick notice of invitation. We thank you. We thank you, participants. We thank the ICT team, those persons who work in the background, Dale, Monique, the ICT team from the ministry, the pre-Liaison Unit, what's her name, Miss Mackenzie? Yes, they did a great work. We can't say thanks to everybody individually, but it has been a wonderful evening, and it has set the foundation for launching in an attack on this pre-Liaison scourge. And we hope to put a dent in it. So bless you, thank you all, and we look forward, and I wish for you a safe holiday, a blessed one, and we expect to see results. And when we shall meet back to have further discussion, we hope that someone is saying that they're hearing us. Check with that. We hope that we would have said, well done, the revamping of the pre-Liaison Unit has reaped success. God bless you all and have a great afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.